Directors meeting for Thursday, July 16, 2020, call to order. Roll call, please.
Director Vallejo.
Present.
Director Kaczynski.
Present.
Chairman Gleason.
Here.
Director Page.
Present.
Vice Chair Hinton.
Present.
Thank you. A quick note. Today's board meeting is closed to the public. We're opening live streaming. Sorry to have to do that again. We're complying with the governor's executive order, and we're in compliance with the CDC regulations for no public meetings, and we'll continue to do that and behave that way until this has been resolved, until we can legally open up or formally open up. And most board members and their parent organizations are also in compliance with the CDC regulations and the governor's executive order. Okay, so let's start off with a report on closed session. Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Chair. Board met on both items in closed session and no reportable action.
Let's have a moment of prayer, silence, and meditation, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led to us by Lauren. Please, everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Okay. So we got the report of closed session, Pledge of Allegiance, and roll call. Next is notice of an item continued to the August 20th, 2020 meeting. In order to provide for additional review and comment, the public hearing on the transient pool and following program and the consideration of the new groundwater extraction well policy have been continued until the August 20th, 2020 regular board meeting. Any dates or deadlines set forth in the draft for said items will be changed, delayed to reflect the additional review period. At this time, I'd like to open up this meeting for public comments. Is there anyone in the public who would wish to make comment to the board at this time on matters that are not pertinent or not on the agenda itself? Anybody in the public? Yes, we have some in the public. So, okay, someone on the phone, please go ahead.
Yes, this is Judy Decker.
Hi, Judy.
Hi, Nick. And I heard what you said at the beginning, but I have a prepared statement, and I have sent it to April to include in for the record, but I would like to read it. It might take me a little longer than your time limit, but not much. The board has two important issues to vote into policy for this meeting, and three scheduled for the August meeting. Yet the board continues to hold non-public meetings. The so-called virtual meeting is a very poor substitute for the ability of the public to attend and speak at your board meetings. It is an extremely awkward way to communicate, and in an awkward, disconnected way for the board, staff, and the public to understand the communication and actions that are taken. It is unreasonable for you to continue holding essentially non-public meetings where the board is holding public hearings and establishing policy that will, in some cases, forever change an individual's future. You created yourself as the Valley's groundwater authority. However, you sit as members elected to other positions which conflict with solving the basin's water problems. Individually, you are sitting on the groundwater authority representing the interests of your constituents who elected you to your various governing positions. This is often a conflict of interest and leads to failure to function in the best interest of groundwater basin sustainability. You need to sit as the water authority to represent all of the individuals of the Indian Wells Valley. The draft EIR from Kern County regarding a solar facility in Inyo Kern is not on this agenda. How will the GA respond to additional water use while planning reduction of others' water uses? Why is no serious effort being made to address the issue of growth in general at a time when well water levels simply continue down and down? There is no new water, so new developments are taking from the already overdrafted existing wells. Governing entities only work with careful research and thoughtful discussions occur. Plans must be precise, clear, and carefully communicated. This is not happening. After the adoption of the GSP in January, several months passed with nothing. There is a sudden flurry where 5 important policies or resolutions were on the June agenda. Some require public hearings. Your 2 public committees had only 2 weeks to review. Then there's no interaction with staff or board. Why? What is the driver in this for the seemingly urgency? Please slow down and truly examine the details of what you are trying to do. Just a minute.
Thank you, Judy.
I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
These policies are actually the implementation plan section of the GSP that was never finished. The PAC and TAC cannot meet and confer. They must hastily respond in writing. This is a poor use of volunteer talent that you as a board approve. Furthermore, as stated more than once in individual replies, the documents dealing with these policies are full of typos, grammatical errors, misspelled words, and sentences in some places that are just confusing. Lastly, I ask a question about finances. Where is all the money going to come from to finance the proposals that exist in your ordinances, resolutions, and policies? When you board members look at staff reports on expenditures and income, do you really get an exact impression of revenues versus expenses and the long-term reliability of this? There still appears to be no detailed financial or executive plan. Whatever happened to the plan? The board has a very difficult job to create and execute a truly viable water management plan for the Indian Wells Valley. But it is a task that you willingly chose for yourselves. Now you need to follow through with this difficult task. Careful, precise work and open, honest communication are critical to success. Shoving through policy, poorly vetted plans is a surefire recipe for even more frustration, delays, and, of course, lawsuits.
Judy, could you please bring your comments to a close? Judy, are you done?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Judy. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Just for interest, is the Navy here? I didn't hear the Navy check in.
Commander Benson on the line.
Thank you, Commander. Appreciate you being here. Okay, we have another caller. Caller, you're up. Go ahead. Caller, you're up.
Thank you, Commander. Appreciate
Caller, you're up. Okay, we're losing some caller. So whoever's on the phone, maybe it'd be best if you hang up and try again. Okay, you're up. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason, board members. Let me mute this. I'm just confused. I've got this notice of public hearing scheduled for August 21st. Is that supposed to be the same date as your next board meeting of August 20th, or are they two separate events?
The 21st. It is two separate events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next caller. Okay, you're up, caller.
Hello,
Hi.
this is Renee Westerlusk, and
Hi, Renee.
I'm calling in about making a few points about replenishment fee that's going to be discussed in August, the August GA meeting. There's a lot of confusion on this fee, and I think the GA, along with the Water District, needs to come up with like a sample calculation so Water District customers can calculate what their increase in their water bill will be. And I have come up with sort of a mathematical calculation where you take the $2,130 times the 12-month total of water used in cubic feet by the residential customer. Then you divide that by the number of cubic feet in 1 acre foot, and that gives you the annual increase in your water bill. I think that needs to be put out there. My second point is on the replenishment fee. I want to know if the GA is going to be coming up with some kind of plan to assist Water District users who can't afford to pay the fee, the increased fees. Like there are Water District customers living on shoestrings, and they can just pay their water bill now, and if it goes way up with the replenishment fee, they will become delinquent customers of the Water District. So I urge the GA board to do something to explore some means of helping those Water District users. And then my third question, point is there's a problem with increasing these large fees suddenly for a lot of organizations, including homeowners associations, because a lot of organizations such as them, and if they use a lot of water, have to make a huge change in their budget when they've already adopted their fiscal year. And the HOAs in Ridgecrest, their fiscal years run from July 1st to June 30th of the following year. And so they're already in their fiscal year, and they will have difficulty raising fees on their members to accommodate the large increase that replenishment fee will put on the water bill for their organization. So I'm urging that if you adopt the replenishment fee and also this, you're going to be discussing the extraction fee increase today, that they be put off to like November when the water usage is low, so that organizations have time to adjust, as well as residential water users to adjust their budgets to prepare for these increased fees. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Next up. Next up. Okay, caller, you're on.
Hi, good morning. Derek Hoffman for Meadowbrook Dairy. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Derek.
Good morning. And thanks to the IT staff and for the clerk of the board for helping me make my way through here. Got dropped a couple of times, so thank you for your patience. I have comments at the moment on agenda item 5.
I also intend to provide verbal comments on items 6, 8, and 9, so I'll call in separately for those out of respect for the organization of the agenda today.
Thank you.
Regarding item 5, the continuation of the transient pool and the new well policy, the agenda and staff report indicate that these items have been continued to August 20, and while the additional time for public review is certainly necessary, the staff report is not clear on whether or what changes are being considered by the Groundwater Authority, or whether the Groundwater Authority is merely moving those items back a month without changes. Meadowbrook and others submitted comments raising substantial concerns with both the transient pool and fallowing program and the new well policy, as reflected in our letters of July 13, July 15, and also June 17. So some questions are changes being made? And if so, what changes are being considered? Additionally, the staff report states that any dates or deadlines set forth in drafts for those items will be changed/delayed to reflect the additional review period. Unfortunately, this does not clarify issues regarding the inconsistent and vague timelines contained within those reports, particularly as to the transient pool and fallowing program, which imposes inconsistent deadlines regarding the decisions to participate in the pool or make sale offers. The timelines are not clear, they're inconsistent. So, continuing those items one more month doesn't answer those questions or resolve those issues. So we're asking for clarifications today, please. And if changes are being made, we would insist that details of those changes be released well in advance of any consideration hearing by the board and not merely days or hours before the meeting. Finally, as detailed in Meadowbrook's letters and those of others, both the transient pool and fallowing program and the new groundwater well extraction policy require significant changes and that issues be resolved. And they must not be adopted in their present form. So thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Are we going to be able to have time to respond to Mr. Hoffman? Not today, but in a form before, if there are changes that are being made?
Chairman, if there's changes being made, he will see the report when changes are made. What changes we'll make, if any, is currently up for discussion, which is why it's pushed over. I don't understand the dates, the comments about the dates. There's frankly 3 dates at this level in this report. There's a December 1st date, an August 1st date, and a September 1st date. August 1st, allotment holder opens fallow program negotiations. That would obviously be moved, and it's obviously a choice of this board, and we're not going to make August 1, but if we adopt this instead of on July 16th, August 20th. Whether that means September 1st, I don't know. That would be changes that we would put together and show then. Other than that, I really don't know what's inconsistent about them. There's only 3 dates.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Next caller. Caller, you're up.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. This is Mike Neal. Can you hear me?
Mike.
Yes. Okay. First, I want to address problems with your GSP plan and the incompleteness. There are 2 problems with this plan. Number 1 is there's nothing definitive delineated as to getting some action from the city to get the city manager off of his rear and get action on getting the wastewater treatment plant solidified with agreement with the water district to get the recycled water from that plant, which will solve probably about half of the augmented water problem. Nothing done there. The other thing is there's absolutely nothing being done or even that I'm aware of to look at Southwest well fields where it's been reported we got rising water levels in the wells in order to use that to assist in that. So your plan is an incomplete plan, yet you're proceeding forward with that, trying to use that as a basis to extract money from our pockets. Now, as far as the replenishment fee and even the pumping fee itself, the pumping fee is due to simply the fact that you've overspent. You've managed to spend $7 million over the last 3 years on studies which have done nothing but attempt to bolster up confidence in numbers that we already knew, we've known for years around here, as what the recharge rate in the aquifer was. The replenishment fee is basically a fraud being perpetrated upon the public for the following reason: is you have no authority to proceed forward with this. You do not have an approved plan. You submitted it to the state. The state has not approved your plan. This is the equivalent of somebody going ahead and driving their car without a driver's license simply because they applied for it, but they hadn't got it yet. And so, well, I applied for it, so now I can do it. Well, you put your plan forward for approval, and I dare any of you to tell me that we've got approval for this plan, because you don't. So this fraud being perpetrated upon the public to extract millions and tens of millions of dollars out of our pockets and bankrupt a lot of individuals and bankrupt a lot of businesses is just totally unacceptable. Now, the fact that this is being done by an unelected board, I'll tell you right now, 2 of you sitting on that board today, you're going to be subject to either not being voted back into office or being recalled if you proceed forward with this replenishment fee. People are outraged by what they see here. So you better reconsider this, and I say you need to drop the whole thing. It's not even a legitimate attempt until the state has at least approved the plan.
Thank you, Mike. Next up. Okay, I think we're done. Does that red light mean we're done? Thank you. We're done with public comments. Appreciate it. Let's move on to item number 7, consent agenda. Who takes this on? Don?
No, we're just asking for approval of the minutes from the June 18th meeting and then the 2 expenditures. But I will note that item B2, the Capital Core Group, although the board it's on the consent agenda for the board to approve, the Water District will be paying that invoice directly.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Let's open the public for comment on the consent agenda. Anybody out there for some thoughts on the consent agenda? We'll give them a couple seconds. Someone on Peggy's phone? Okay, we got somebody calling in. Okay, caller, you're up. Caller, you're up.
Good morning. Again, Derek Hoffman from Meadowbrook Dairy.
Good morning, Derek.
I'm commenting on item 6, public comments. Not sure if that got skipped, but mentioned I would honor
that's okay, Don. That's okay. Continue with your thoughts.
Okay, thank you. So, Meadowbrook, again, submitted comment letters dated June 17, July 13, and July 15, and we've received no responses to any of those comments, and we've not seen any Groundwater Authority responses to letters submitted by other stakeholders as well, except perhaps a short time ago this morning, which I'll mention later. The Groundwater Authority has stifled and sidelined its committees, as documented in our letters and others. As Ms. Decker noted, the PAC and TAC have not had a single meeting in 2020, in person or virtual. The staff reason has been that it was, quote, not realistic, which is not an adequate response. And instead, PAC and TAC members have been relegated to the status of all other members of the public. They can send letters and try to call in, but staff has dictated that they cannot have meaningful meetings. As stated in our letters, the process for public engagement and discussion of today's critical and highly controversial Groundwater Authority action items is severely debilitated by the limited means by which members of the public are allowed to present comments during pandemic conditions. The Groundwater Authority has released extensive documents no more than 48 hours prior to the meeting and still hadn't released the remainder of the agenda's packet prior to the meeting. This conduct severely limits the opportunity for stakeholders to draft and submit written comments, and it virtually guarantees that the IWVGA board will not review and meaningfully consider those comments. I would appreciate it if it would be stated for the record which board members actually read Meadowbrook's letters and the letters submitted by others for today's items. And as noted by others this morning, the rush of the Groundwater Authority to adopt these items during these unprecedented conditions reflects a failure to consider the interests of beneficial uses and users of groundwater and to engage in robust public discourse as required by SGMA, the DWR GSP regulations, and also the DWR best management practices. So as stated by others, we share the view that asking the groundwater authority to seriously reconsider the pace at which it's pursuing these items, especially while public engagement is so severely limited. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. I'm not going to respond to your comment about you'd like to know who read all that kind of stuff, but I will say that I do know that the letters that you sent also to our parent commands, and those letters have been distributed. Okay, so that brings to close public comments.
John Vallejo.
Oh, John, go ahead.
Just one comment, just because he did ask and threw it out there. And I'll just say that if the commenters are going to just read verbatim the letters that they do send in for public comment, I will simply just wait to hear them read them verbatim in public comment from now on. But if they want us to actually consider the letters ahead of time, I'll do that instead. So it's kind of going to be one or the other for me at this point with regard to where I spend my attention and detail consideration for those types of comments. So I do appreciate the written comments. I do read them. I would appreciate it if folks just refer to the comments they've made, and if we have any questions about those comments, we can go ahead and ask them, as opposed to them reading them verbatim or at near verbatim to the board at every meeting.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate it. Just a reminder, the public comments section portion of our meeting is just that. It's designed to allow for the public to make presentations. There are many other ways to communicate with this board, and Meadowbrooks has taken full advantage of that. I'm thankful to do by sending in letters for us to better understand their positions. But the public comment section of the board is now over, and we're back to the consent agenda. Don has already introduced some thoughts about it. Is there anybody else in the public who'd like to make comment on item number 7, the consent agenda, before we make a motion on it? I see none. I still see none. Okay, I still see none. And so I'm going to bring it back for the board for comment, discussion, and a vote. Item 7.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please, let's have a roll call vote.
Director Vallejo?
Aye.
Director Kaczynski?
Yes.
Chairman Gleason?
Yes.
Director Page?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hayman?
Aye. Item number 8, public hearing and consideration of a data package on an increase in the current groundwater extraction fee and adoption of CEQA findings and ordinance 02 TAC 20. Jim Worth, I understand you're the pro from Dover in this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes. Okay, this is a matter that a proposed revision to the groundwater extraction fee that was enacted back in 2018 pursuant to ordinance number 02-18, and it became effective on September. Back in 2018, when we initiated the original fee, the fee was intended to generate approximately $1.5 million in about a 2-year period. After the fee was imposed, a couple of the assumptions needed to be revised. Primary problem was that the fees estimated were $1.5 million, and in fact, to date, they're approximately one half of that. So instead of collecting 1.5 through the groundwater extraction fee, we've only collected about $750,000. So that created a cash flow problem, along with the reimbursement, the slow pace of the reimbursement for the Prop 1 grant reimbursements were creating cash flow problems, and we did not have enough money. And so recently the board directed staff to go ahead and take a look at the fee again, and to try to come up with something that would address the deficit issues that we were facing. And so along those lines, the staff still believes the best way to go is the groundwater extraction fee pursuant to 10730, which we already have in place. And so staff's recommendation is that we just revise or, in fact, increase the fee so we can go ahead and pay off the cost of the GSP development. I'll remind the board that the groundwater extraction fees can only be used for a very specific purpose, and that is for preparation, adoption, amendment of a GSP, investigations, inspections, compliance. And so all of the tasks that are covered under this fee are what staff believes, and we've done an analysis, are appropriate fees under 10730. So we've received some comments, and there were some comments, procedural comments, about the whether or not the notice requirements have been met. And I will say that right now, you're required to have a public meeting pursuant to 10730, and this is, in fact, the public meeting that is required. And what it says is a GSP must provide notice prior to the meeting pursuant to Government Code 6066, which means you post notice in a paper of general circulation for 2 consecutive weeks with at least 5 days intervening. We did, in fact, publish that notice on July 3rd and July 10th through the Daily Independent. An additional requirement before imposing or increasing a fee is that we provide the public with a data package that contains the information that the proposed fee increase is based upon. And there's been some assertions that wasn't done, and I would disagree with that. The data package was posted on the IWV GA website, and copies were made available both at the Water District as well as the City of Ridgecrest on June 25th. So we certainly posted the data package within more than 20 days prior to the prior to today's public meeting. I will say this, that the only thing that has been revised in the data package from the time it was posted, June 25th, until today, is the staff report and the numbers in the budget regarding the fee. Nothing else was changed in the data package, and I'm not even sure the staff report was required to be part of the data package. It's more of an explanation of the data package as opposed to something that we rely upon. So I believe that the GA, we've met all of the requirements noticed in terms of we published the public meeting today. We've had the data package out, and all we've done is continue to work on the package to try to continue to reduce the fees. And in fact, we have done that since it was posted on June 25th. So I guess where I'm starting right now is if you go to page 4 of the staff report. And this really shows you what we did initially, what the revised estimates are, and what the new gap funding required would be. So under the budget items, and this was not intended to be any type of a budget approval or anything like this. This is merely showing the estimates about how we arrived at the gap funding needed to pay off the GSP preparation. So the original estimate, those numbers down there, those are identical to what was included in the June 2018 data package. And we're doing that just to show you where the changes have come from. The only thing that has been excluded under the original estimate have been references to the SDAC programs, because those programs are intended to be fully funded through the Prop 1 grant application, so we don't need to collect any fees to pay for those. So they've been excluded for that purpose. So when we started the process back in 2018, you can see we needed $1.522 million to complete it. When we started doing the issues, we went into it again, and staff worked closely with Stetson to come up with some revised estimates. And I'll say, and I will point out that our original estimates were made back in 2018, and since that time, we've become a lot more knowledgeable about what was needed to complete our GSP, and so we've revised the estimates. And so the first revision under IWV GA support costs, you'll recall that when we were going into the fee, Stetson we had already received approval for the Prop 1 application grant of $1.5 million. However, there were additional costs that were identified by Stetson that weren't covered under the Prop 1 grant. And those are the IWV GA support costs. And back in 2018, they were originally estimated at $435,000. Revised estimate is $991,402. So there's been a increase of approximately, what is that, $500,000. If you go further down, and you can see the different, we do a step by task, the original estimate, what the revised estimate is, and then the variance or over under if you want to classify it that way. So there's an increased cost for the support. The IWV GA administrative costs, originally budgeted at $161,000. That was reduced to $24,968 because those were already incurred, and there will be no other costs incurred under administrative costs that would be attributable to the this fee. We've got the City of Ridgecrest reimbursable cost. Original estimate was $210,000. And I will say, even if you look at the original estimates back in 2018, you can see that the estimates as to the city's attorney's fees were just, in fact, that estimates. Since that time, the city has recently gone back and actually looked at the invoices, and the number now is $287,133. We initially provided $200,000 in legal costs to cover costs incurred by Jim Markman to help prepare the GSP costs, and originally estimated at $200,000. We added $500,000. So the new number is $646 because Jim only spent about $150,000 of the $200,000. But we added $500,000. I think the board's aware we've got 3 tolling agreements out there, and there is an expectation that there could be litigation coming, and so we need to be able to cover those expenses. The reserve, originally estimated at $227,000, has been removed. We don't need a reserve anymore because we have a very express purpose here, and that is to pay off the GSP costs. In addition to Stetson revising their support costs, they also identified a number of additional tasks that they've undertaken as part of the preparation of the GSP that were not identified a couple years ago. And you can see those start at data management system review and go all the way down to the audit. There's been some question in the comments received as to whether or not these are, I'll just call them preparation costs or implementation costs that argue management actions that would be covered under a new fee pursuant to 107.30.2. I will say that staff worked closely with Stetson and Heather in particular in identifying and putting cost numbers to the task that we felt still needed to be done or have been done that were still part of the cost preparation. And notwithstanding the comments, I think it's interesting to note some people have made the comment that, you know, once you get the GSP adopted, there won't be any other costs under 107.30. But in fact, 107.30 allows costs to be incurred for not just preparation, but also amendment of a GSP. So I believe it's pretty clear that some of these costs were anticipated to occur post GSP adoption. So these additional tasks that have been identified by Stetson accumulate to about $934,000. And those are additional costs that were not identified a couple of years ago. You've got the water importation marketing analysis at the bottom of the expenditures, just about. Those were costs that were incurred by Capital Corps, and those were costs directly related to GSP preparation. They're still working on other costs, other tasks that aren't necessarily part of the GSP preparation. Those costs are being taken care of elsewhere by those subject to future fees, and are not part of this revised fee. The last item under the expenditures, under revised estimate, is the county's loan for $500,000. That needs to be repaid, so that has been included. So the revised estimate shows costs of $6,559,574. We also revised the revenue projections. You see, we lowered the pump fee. It's only $750,000. We also included the $300,000 for the Prop 68, and total revenues are $5,027,984. So the gap funding that we believe we need is $1,531,590. I should also note that one of the reasons that the primary reason that the revised estimate has been reduced so much from the from what was submitted in June 25th is that the Water District has just come out and unequivocally said that the $500,000 that they advanced, we're going to use that as a credit against future fees, and so that's been removed from this the extraction fee. So that's where the numbers come from in terms of coming up with the 1.5 million needed. The way you calculate fees is we just discussed how we got to the $1,531,000, and we needed to assume how much pumping was going to occur. And so there is a chart, and it's caused a little bit of confusion because maybe there's potentially additional columns on this chart. But really what we did is we looked at current estimated pumping, and that does not include any allocations pursuant to the transient pool. And if you get rid of de minimis and Navy, you've got approximately 10,000 acre feet that we believe are going to be subject to the fee, still pumping groundwater. So you've got 10,000 acre feet, and if you want to pay off the fee in a year, the fee would be we would recommend $155. We did 15 months as well because that would, in theory, pay off the GSP preparation by the end of 2021. And then you see the numbers for a year and a half, about $105 fee, which is what staff's recommending. And if you want to extend it further, you could drop it down to approximately $80 and have it paid off in a couple months. The identification, it's been a little bit easier. There's been some requirements imposed, so we've looked at not only the public data but also who's registered their wells and have come up with a list of who will be subject to the fee. And I think you see it's pretty much the city, the Water District, Kern County, Inyo Kern, the various small mutuals, Trona, Searles Valley. They're all subject to the fee. In terms of how we're going to assess it, everybody now is required to report their groundwater extraction, so we'll be relying on that information to go ahead and collect the fee. Again, the way the fee will be collected hasn't been changed. Really, we're not changing anything from the original groundwater extraction fee other than revising the numbers. And so I've talked about this for a long time. So if I'll take questions right now if there are any, then go from there.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Let's open it up to the public first. Does the public have any thoughts concerning what we just heard on item, what item is this, 8? 8. Open it up for public hearing on item 8. I know that Meadowbrook wants to comment. Okay, we have a caller. Caller, please go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, Chairman Gleason, board members. My comment is, you guys talking acre feet, but that doesn't really help the public. We're billed in HCF.
Could you please identify yourself?
I'm sorry, Richard Wagner.
Hi, Richard.
So it'd just be easier for the public, and maybe it's in the report. I'm not looking at the staff report, but for the public to understand what these fees amount to, if you could talk to them in HCF. And then, with that being said, can we, the public, be told what the increase is going to be? I understand that the current fee is about 7 cents per HCF.
Thank you, sir. We're going to get those answers to you in our conversation, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll get some answers as we go through the conversation, I'm sure. Okay. We have those answers. Next up. Yes, sir. Ma'am.
Yes, this is Renee Westelas with some questions. Hi, everyone. On page 5 of the report, it says staff recommends $105 per acre foot. It's right below the chart where it has duration of years and the fees. Okay, but then if you further go up to the data package, it later states the staff is recommending $140 per acre foot. And the other question I have, is this added on to the $30 we're already paying per acre foot of the original, or does that 105 or the 140 include that $30 original pumping fee per acre foot?
Thank you, Renee. I don't see the 140.
It's in the data package.
More in-depth experts make so much rebate.
Okay.
Chairman Gleason, I can address those questions if you'd like.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah. The first one is the fee would be increased from $30 to $105 if that were in fact what the board wanted to do. It's not it wouldn't be 105 plus 30. It's just the one fee at $105. And when you look at the data package, as I stated earlier, the only thing that was revised was the numbers and the expenditures that we were trying to cover under this fee. And even though we put the data package out on June 25th, we continued to work on the numbers, and the water district deferred reimbursement of the $500,000, and that was a big component of reducing the fee. And so this staff report is the most recent, and so with the reduction and the changes in the budget, the 140 naturally reduced to 105.
Okay.
Primarily the result of the district deferring the $500,000.
Thank you. Renee, you have other questions?
Well, I'm just confused. I don't know what the fee change is going to be.
We don't either. We're going to vote on that shortly, and we're going to make a decision on the options that are put forward. It's $30 now. We're saying that it's going to change to something, and you'll see that happen during our conversation.
So it'll either go to 105 or 140 per acre foot?
No, I think there's several other options there that if you continue to watch, you'll see us in the conversation talking about where it goes to, and you'll be satisfied with an answer shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Next up. Does that green light mean to somebody else? Yes, I think it does. Caller, you're up.
Good morning again, Derek Hoffman, Meadowbrook Dairy.
Morning, Derek.
Some comments. Morning again. The board simply cannot adopt this fee today without making significant corrections. Adopting the fee will subject it to voiding under Water Code 10730 and 10726.6 for violation of SGMA requirements, as detailed in our letters. It is impossible to verbally detail in 3 minutes the many detailed flaws and issues and inconsistencies and unexplained items in the data package and the staff reports, which were just released approximately 48 hours ago. So again, I do refer you to those letters and ask that you review them, and that you refrain from adopting this fee until all those issues are thoroughly addressed and corrected, as well as the issues raised by others. I will summarize a few main points, because I think part of the reason for calling in is to share the comments publicly, in addition to providing written comments. Water Code 10730 requires the Groundwater Authority to release the data on which the fee is based at least 20 days before the meeting. As Council mentioned a moment ago, a data package was released on June 25th, and he indicated that there are no changes to the data package, but only to the staff report. I don't think that's correct. The staff report is included in the data package, and it's also included at the beginning of the agenda packet item. And further, as detailed in our letters, and again, I refer you to those letters, there are inconsistencies between the staff report at the beginning and the staff report contained in the data package. And more importantly, since staff and apparently the authority are relying upon the staff report to explain the changes that have been made to the numbers, I see no distinction between the staff report and the data package. They're all part of what you are considering today. So there are inconsistencies there that remain to be clarified and addressed. And there have been major changes made since the board released the data initially on June 18th. So the 20-day requirement has not been met. The data before you was released 48 hours ago as part of the July data package. And it proposes a still shocking $105 per acre foot. And it includes some expense items that have more than doubled since the June 18 data package. Next, the staff report is misleading regarding public engagement and consideration of written comments. It states that there were 9 letters received, but it is impossible that any of those letters addressed the 48-hour data package, because the staff report and the July data package were both simultaneously released just 48 hours ago. Next, there are hundreds of thousands of dollars baked into this fee that are expenses clearly not for preparation of the GSP, but are instead costs for GSP projects and management actions. It can only be adopted under Water Code 10730.2 and Proposition 218. We noted in our letter that one of the subtle but important changes that the staff reports made was removing the language preparation of the GSP and just saying for the GSP. We think that reflects an indication that you recognize this issue. The improper expenses are identified in our letter and in letters submitted by other parties, and we ask you consider them and make the necessary modifications. A few further points, and then I'll wrap up. The fee is unfair, and the staff report does not clarify who's included in the 10,000 acre foot pumping assumption, or why those assumptions were made, or how the sustainable yield report or its charts are relevant to this fee. Next, the staff report is incorrect in stating that de minimis pumpers are exempt from the fee, or must be exempt from this fee. SGMA allows the Groundwater Authority to charge fees to de minimis pumpers if they are regulated under this part, meaning SGMA. The GA has ordered all de minimis pumpers to register their wells and has already therefore begun regulating these users. Notably, these users have largely refused or otherwise failed to comply with those well registration requirements. Also, the Water Resources Manager has no confirmation as to how many de minimis users there are, but current estimates are that this group pumps at least 1,600 acre feet. That would be 2 acre feet per user, which are estimated at 800 users, which represents more than 20% of the IWVGA's so-called sustainable yield estimate. Yet, this fee would require these users to pay nothing. Even the Water District's technical consultant and TAC representative has noted this policy is misguided and de minimis pumpers need to participate in achieving sustainability and shoulder their fair share of the cost. The GSP is already designed to protect them at all costs. Meanwhile, the fee would largely be shouldered by agriculture to fund a GSP that is expressly designated to and designed to eradicate agriculture. So finally, the board needs to seriously consider these legal issues and inequities and reconsider exempting de minimis users from the fee. Rather than chastising members of the public for urging that a finance committee be formed, the board should consider these issues publicly and discuss and debate these policy decisions. There were some members of this board who expressed shock last month at the increased fee and demanded that staff provide a detailed explanation of the changes. The staff report provides some information, but insufficiently describes what's included in those costs. So we ask where the accountability is in terms of overseeing these. So in conclusion, we respectfully but strongly urge this groundwater authority to refrain from adopting this fee until it addresses all public comments, including those submitted by Meadowbrook, and then it removes all improper costs from the fee and complies with all public noticing requirements under SIGMA and other applicable law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Worth, do you have comments?
No, I mean, I think I tried to address all of those in my presentation. The data package, the only changes in the data package were contained within the staff report. The issue regarding whether they're preparation versus management actions, as I've indicated, staff has worked closely with Stetson and Heather particularly in identifying tasks and costs that we think were appropriate under 10730. Those are all listed under expenditures. Budget items, I believe that all of the notice requirements have been met, and I've tried to summarize it the best that I could pursuant to the staff report.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next caller. Okay, caller, you're up.
Okay. Hello?
Hello.
Yes. This is Mike Neal.
Hi, Mike.
Yes, hello. The reason we're here talking about this huge pumping fee increase is really for one reason. I mentioned that earlier in my previous comment. It's this board being unaccountable to the public in that it's not an elected board, so you can get away with doing whatever you want. You'll never be removed from your positions on this board per se, although, like I've already delineated, two of you are fast running down the road to being removed from the positions you are elected to. The reason we're here is because this board has spent money like drunken sailors. You overspent doing redundant studies, coming to the pre-gone conclusion that most of you should have already known that the day you started, the recharge number has never gone down from what was talked about years ago when all this first blew up in everybody's face. And so here we are. Now, you're throwing the numbers out. Most people don't understand it, and I intend to do my best to make sure that everybody in this valley understands what's going to happen to them. And basically what it amounts to is this is going to be a minimum of a $70 increase in their water bills, at least for water district users, on average per year. Now, those of you who paid any attention to the attempt by the city to levy a fee that was going to be $50 per year and got voted down by a record 80% no vote, you can see how people feel about being charged extra money by bureaucracies, especially bureaucracies that they did not even elect to put in place to actually have the power to tax them and enforce these things. So here you are charging people money. They're not going to be happy at all about paying whatsoever. I'll tell you for sure, for myself, just for the illegality of this whole board and the overspending and the lack of accuracy and even what you're putting forth to the public even today, I'm literally incensed about this, and I'm going to do my level best to make sure that a lot of other people come to the same conclusion that they need to be incensed about what's going on here.
Thanks, Mike. Next up. you're up.
Yes. Good morning. This is Elizabeth Esposito. I'm an attorney with Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, Schreck, and I'm calling on behalf of Mojave Pistachios, the Nugent Family Trust, and Sierra Shadows Ranch.
Hi, Elizabeth. Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to ask the board to please refer to our detailed written comment letter that we submitted yesterday and to confirm that that letter was received.
Yes, so I'm giving you a thumbs. I don't know if you have the visual, if you can see me, but yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then I'll keep my comments very short. We'd simply ask the board to postpone adoption of the extraction fee until the procedural and substantive requirements of SGMA have been met. So procedurally, we'd ask that the public be provided the full 20 days to review the changes to the data packet and staff report under Water Code Section 10730. And then substantively, we'd ask, again, that the board remove the GST implementation items from the budget that will be funded by this fee. And then I'd like to ask for clarification on two questions that may have already been answered, but that is whether the groundwater pumpers subject to the replenishment fee will be required to pay both the replenishment fee and this extraction fee, and then second, whether pumpers will be required to pay the extraction fee when they're using a transient pool allotment. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Appreciate your attention to my comments.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Jim, you want to take a whack at that thing since this is your baby?
The pumpers that are going to be subject to this groundwater extraction fee are going to be those that are identified in the data package. The pumpers, if you're pumping transient pool water, that will not be subject to this fee. There's no as to the second question, there's no link between the groundwater extraction fee and the replenishment fee. There will be some pumpers that are required to pay the replenishment fee and pay the groundwater extraction fee, and then there are some that will just pay the groundwater extraction fee. We're still going through some of the processes, so I can't give you a specific list of who's going to be subject to the replenishment fee. That process is still going forward, but that's my answer.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Next caller. I see somebody's on the line. Caller, you can start speaking. Hello.
Yes, this is Joshua Nugent on behalf of Mojave Pistachios.
Good morning, Josh.
Morning. I just had a kind of a follow-up clarification question. So let's just take two agricultural pumpers, one of them who's in the transient pool and one of them who's not in the transient pool. And how long will, because currently both are paying the $30 an acre foot fee. So how long would they continue to pay that? When would it transition to if either one of them has to pay the $105 fee? And then the way I'm understanding it, if you are not in the transient pool, starting in, let's say, September or October, you would be subject to both the roughly $2,200 replenishment fee and the $105 groundwater extraction fee. So those are my questions, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. Jim, you want to take an answer at that? Shot at that?
Yeah, I think I heard, and I guess my question would be, if there was an agricultural pumper that was pumping transient pool water, he would not be subject to the groundwater extraction fee being discussed right now, and he would not be subject to the replenishment fee. However, any pumping done under the transient pool will be subject to the mitigation fee, which is part of the replenishment fee, and that's about $17.50. So any pumping done by an agricultural pumper that doesn't have that hasn't received any water will be subject to the fees. Both of them. If you were pumping outside of the transient pool, an agricultural pumper, you'd be subject to the groundwater extraction fee as well as the replenishment fee.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Any further comments?
I think that's pretty much sums it up. If you're in the transient pool, the presumption, although it hasn't been voted on by this board obviously yet, is that you would not be paying for a GSP fee, the 730 fee today, and obviously you wouldn't be paying a replenishment fee. If you are outside of the transient pool, you would be paying those.
But this is most of those things are assumptions because those boards have not voted. The board has not voted on that
The
issue.
transient pool has not been voted on, and it's
Nor
not before
clearly
you.
defined.
Nope.
Got it. Next question.
Yes, please.
Someone's out there calling. Caller, you're up. Hello.
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 Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
I guess that was it.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry because I had my earphones on and I can still hear Mike Neal. This is Judy Decker, and after listening to the comments in particular from Derek Kaufman and his criticism, I will remind you of what I said in public comment. Please slow down and look at the details. I know you are going to have to increase the fee, but what you don't need is to find more money for more lawsuits. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next up. Caller, you're on the line.
I think the caller has placed us on hold.
Oh. Okay. I've got 2 red lights. That means there's no further callers. Okay, so we're done with the public comment. Right now we're done with the public comment, but I understand there may be some issues with our technology, so if we have to get a call back in, we will allow that to happen as we move through this. Oh, right, well, we do have someone online right now. So let's take this caller before we close the public hearing. Caller, you are up.
Yes, this is Don Decker.
Hi, Don.
Hi. The concern I have is, it was mentioned by Judy Decker this morning, that there doesn't appear to be actually a detailed functional plan nor financial plan. The tables that have the various costings that we've been looking at have no line item numbers at all. Makes it very difficult to follow what's happening and what's being changed. And the $1 million or so that's been added in these new projects has never been really before the board nor the committees. They just simply appear. And so, you know, this is not an accusation, but it looks like there are lots of things happening here that are not under the direct control of anyone. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate it.
Time.
Thank you. Next caller. Okay, I think we're done now. So we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comment, conversation, and discussion and a vote. Anybody?
Did you want me to respond to Mr. Wagner's question about the rates?
Please do.
Okay. So at the staff recommendation, staff recommendation of $105 per acre foot, paid over a period of 1.5 years. And I'll preface this by just saying this is an estimate based on the last year's data, the Water District data, in terms of our production and customer consumption. And also this is the average residential customer. By average, I mean the standard 3/4 inch meter in our A zone, which is where most of our residential customers are located. So the fee would go from the current 7 cents on the $30 per acre foot charge to 24 cents per 100 cubic foot at that $105 per acre foot fee. Spread out over 18 months, that would increase that average residential customer's bill by $60.70, or about $3.37 per month.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. I think that brings it to a better understanding for most of the ratepayers who are listening. Any other thoughts, gentlemen? All right.
Okay, there's been some discussion about having what's called a sunset on this amount, because we know this fee will go away eventually. And I'm trying to make it clear that this is a volumetric charge. So putting a sunset in terms of timing isn't practical. However, I want to make sure that anything that we vote on here puts a limit on the amount of money that this fee is going to collect, which I believe is 1.5 million plus change. So that could take and plus the fact that we're going to continue to look at this number of charges here, especially these additional tasks. Again, some of these, I expect some may reduce. There may be some reduction in this. I don't believe there'll be any increase. There's a number of items. There's a couple items here that, I did read. Believe it or not, I read all this stuff that came from the various attorneys, and so based on that, I want to again ask the question to our legal. Number one, did we meet the 20-day requirement? And number two, are we pretty much sure that we've cleaned this up where there's no implementation costs in here? And if the legal agrees to that, that's a big point to me. And I believe I think Jim, you gave us an answer on the 10,000 acre feet, did you not? I think you pretty much cleared that up, so I don't really need to go there. So I'm concerned, one, are we meeting the 20-day requirement of getting the information out there? And number two, does our legal team believe that all the implementation costs have come out of here?
Jim, over to you. Jim Worth. I think my microphone is off.
We posted a data package June 25th, 20 days prior to the public meeting that we're conducting right now. The only change was a staff report, and it really contains reductions in the fee, and not and we haven't added anything since June 25th, only taken things away. And more things could be taken away in the future as well. So I do believe we have met the 20-day notice requirement. And again, I've said this a couple times now, staff worked closely with Stetson and Heather in particular in identifying tasks that we believe are, quote, preparation costs and appropriate under 107.30.2. 107.30, I'm sorry. So I believe that the expenditures are appropriate and that the notice has been met, and I'll defer to Phil and Keith if they have a different opinion.
I want to thank you. I want to take time to thank the staff too, because getting this down from 225 to 105 is a task. I still believe it could drop some more, but I think that we're at a good place now, and that if we're going to continue to look at some of these expenditures, I'm not going to name any in particular, but I want to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball on these and see that any of them can come off of this and either move to another location or come off entirely. But we need to move ahead on this. We have bills to pay. A lot of things you see on here are bills we've already accrued that need to be paid. So again, I want to commend the staff to get us down from 225. That means a lot to the Water District ratepayers, because yes, I do know that $3 as an average of $3 per month is a lot to some people. But keep in mind, these are averages. There are many households that use 4 units rather than 10. And things like that. So just look at that line item on your bill from the Water District that says GSA fee. That's 7 cents. That means you can look at past bills and change that number to 24 cents, and you can see what the impact will be on you. And remember, this fee will go away as soon as we meet the requirement of $1.5 million.
Thanks. I just want to throw in there, I think one of the items you were talking about that are going to possibly change is the county loan, and we're looking for ways to move that off this number, which will also have significant impact to our ratepayers to reduce their costs. So I'm looking forward to that. I know there are other things we're working on, closely, but that's one of them I wanted to make sure you knew about.
And let me just say, what that means is not the fee won't change. That will remain there. But what will happen is the length of the time the fee will be there. So if this board elects to go $105 for 18 months and things like Mick is talking about change and maybe some other things come off here, it reduces that amount of money. And that is the point at which the fee, once that money is collected, will end.
Thanks, Ron. Mr. Hamby.
So, kind of a further with that, if we were to not meet the budget gap, would this fee continue on past 18 months? Or that's my concern, is if we have to readdress this whole issue again, and would we have to go through the whole process with the 218? Or so my concern is, are we pretty solid on the fee that we're at, and is it going to meet this so that we don't have to readdress this in the future? So I understand part, like if we come up early, great, we can shut it down quick. So I guess my concern is, if you could.
Basically, I said it's a volumetric fee to collect at this point $1.5 million. The calculations based on the pumping they're estimating now is 18 months. If for some reason, let's say that pumping dropped in half, yes, the fee would continue longer because the goal is 1.5 million, not the timing. So there would be no reason to revisit this. If anything, like Chairman Director Gleason said, it may actually reduce in timing based on the amount of money. So 1.5 million is the goal, 105 per acre foot. Once that amount of money is met, that fee would be gone. Could it go, so voting on 1 year or 18 months, they're just giving us an idea of what it's going to cost. So if everything was ideal, as proposed here, everything was ideal, 18 months would give us 1.5 million. But pumping varies, and that's the biggest thing.
Right, and so I'm clear, to be clear on it, if it was to go past the 18 months, what would be the process to extend it? Would we have to?
The fee stays in place until you have reached all of the costs that you're covering.
Okay.
If that takes 18 months or 24 months, the fee stays in place.
And we would not have to go into the...
Your action today adopts it.
Okay, because I've been asked that and through the city, and I just want to be clear that that's where we're at, so, okay.
Any other comments from board members? Okay, I'm looking for a motion and a second and a vote.
I'm going to make this motion because I want to put some, I guess, caveats on in a way. I would like to make a motion that we approve the fee of the $105 as recommended to collect the 1.531 million, what that number is, rather than 18 months. So the motion basically is to do the fee until the amount of money that is recommended here is collected. And included in that motion be that we also continue to look at the line items for any potential reductions or removal from the plan. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good to me.
So we have a motion?
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other further comment from board members?
Should Chairman Gleason?
Go ahead.
This is a question for Phil. Phil, should this motion reference the ordinance that's going to amend the existing fee?
Yes, it should. We have a detailed recommendation in the staff report with CEQA findings, et cetera.
So let's do this. How about, Mr. Worth, how about you read off the recommendation of the motion that Mr. Kaczynski just made for us, and then we'll take the vote.
Will do. The recommended action from staff to the board is, 1, make a finding that the proposed ordinance 02-20, is exempt from further environmental review pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15273 and Public Resources Code 21080B8, because it's the establishment of operational rates and charges. Additionally, it has been determined that this action is exempt from further environmental review pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15061B3, because it can be seen with a certainty that this action will not have a significant effect on the environment. Moreover, it's been determined that this action is exempt from further environmental review pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15378B5. As it involves administrative activities that will not result in direct or indirect physical changes to the environment. Second part is to adopt ordinance number 02-20, amending ordinance number 02-18, establishing groundwater extraction fees and the rules, regulations, and procedures for their imposition, and the supporting data package providing for an increased pumping fee. And finally, number 3, authorize staff to do all things necessary to implement the revised groundwater extraction fee, and that will also include publishing the ordinance in the newspaper. So those are the 3 actions that staff is recommending.
Got that.
I'd simply add the dollar amount inside the ordinance, as we've left it blank at this point for your consideration. So.
Okay, but I think you specifically want to make some modifications to that. Could you address those modifications in your motion?
Phil hit the one, is that basically the fee will remain in effect until the recommended 1.5 plus million is collected. And because that's a volumetric fee, it won't be based on a certain number of months, just remains in effect until that money is collected, as well as that staff continue to identify each of these items in here with necessary explanations and reports as to whether any can be removed. My expectation, and that's it.
Thank you. And that's sufficient?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion. Is that your second also?
Yes.
And we have a motion and a second. Let's have a vote. Roll call vote, please.
Director
Can
Vallejo.
I have a question first?
Yes. Mr. Page, go ahead. You have a question.
Yeah, I completely understand, and I'm supportive of the motion's additional direction from the board, but I'm assuming other than adding the dollar amount of 105, we're not changing any other language in the ordinance itself, which indicates that the fee will continue until rescinded by the board. So the way I see Ron's motion is the board signaling, if we approve his motion, we're signaling our intent to rescind at the point that we collect all the money we're needing. Is that a correct assumption?
Does that work, Phil?
That's what I was assuming, too,
Okay.
that we wouldn't be adding that language to the ordinance.
Yeah, the point is, once we hit that dollar amount, what you're saying, it needs to come back to us to rescind it once you hit that dollar amount?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Page, does that satisfy your question?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Let's have a roll call vote.
Director Vallejo.
Aye.
Director Kaczynski.
Aye.
Chairman Gleason.
Aye.
Director Page.
Aye.
Vice Chair Heeman.
Aye.
Okay, item number 9, board consideration and adoption of resolution 6-20 and related CEQA findings adopting the report of the Indian Wells Valley groundwater basin sustainable yield of 7,650 acre feet. Phil, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. As we all know, this item was before us last month for preliminary adoption and sent out for notice, comment to the public. Comments were received. There is a matrix of responses to pack and tack comments that is now posted on the website, I believe, and available for review. Other than that, there's really not much here to say that wasn't said last month. This report essentially at its basis says, quite simply, that this groundwater authority does not have the ability to regulate the Navy because of sovereign immunity. Therefore, it has no ability to make any determinations related to water rights. It didn't have them anyway through SGMA, but because of that very simple fact that we cannot even investigate the Navy, even if SGMA gave us the authority to determine water rights, which it does not, we are unable to. So this is simply a report showing the legal dilemma that this GSA has, which is that we cannot properly investigate what the Navy's use is, what the Navy will not tell us what its Federal Reserve water right is, and therefore we are hamstrung, which the report says.
Thank you, sir. Let's open it up to the public for comment. Okay. See no public comment, and we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comment and discussion and a vote. Oh, we got a comment. We got a public comment, so let's reopen that public hearing real quick. Yes, sir, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Derek Hoffman, Gresham Savage on behalf of Meadowbrook. Again, Meadowbrook submitted letters dated June 17, July 13, and July 15 addressing this item and detailing many flaws in the report and objections to its adoption by the authority. We also joined the comments submitted by Mojave and Searle, including the CEQA violations described in their letters. We don't see all letters posted on the Groundwater Authority website, so for the benefit of the public, I will summarize many of my points. The staff report also says that the Groundwater Authority provided responses to all comments and included them in the agenda package. However, no responses were released prior to today's meeting until just moments ago. Meadowbrook and the public have had no time to review those responses, and we noticed, however, that there are no responses to Meadowbrook's comments included in those documents. This again means it is virtually impossible for the board to have actually and thoroughly considered all the relevant issues and comments. We urge the board to refrain from adopting this flawed and highly objectionable report and any GSP implementation action or fee predicated upon it. Again, 3 minutes is too short, so I'll offer just a brief summary of some of the main points in our letters. First, the Sustainable Yield Report violates SGMA. Nowhere in that document is any reference made to undesirable results, minimum thresholds, or measurable objectives, which are fundamental to the statutory definition of sustainable yield under SGMA. And Meadowbrook has previously submitted evidence and information indicating that the Groundwater Authority has not properly considered actual basin conditions in the North Brown Road area near Meadowbrook's properties. And instead, the report comprises what appears to be an unauthorized, incomplete, and inaccurate determination of water rights by the Groundwater Authority, notwithstanding the stated legal dilemma as it's been described. As documented in our letter and in the record of the Groundwater Authority, the Navy has stated many times that it would accept 2,041 acre-feet under a GSP, which notably is 25% more than the Navy actually uses. Instead, the Groundwater Authority has taken upon itself to give the entire basin to the Navy and to selected users anointed by the Groundwater Authority. Meadowbrook has submitted evidence into the record demonstrating that the concepts for sustainable yield and the replenishment fee reports are clearly based upon a staff determination of water rights and not upon SGMA principles or correct application of Federal Reserve water rights law. Others have submitted similar comments. The report, yet again, is clearly designed to eradicate agriculture. The report also ignores facts and evidence regarding basin technical conditions, and it also misrepresents the tax recommendations regarding average basin recharge. The TAC did not agree that 7,650 acre-feet accurately represents the basin's sustainable yield or average basin recharge. And in fact, just weeks ago, the Water Resources Manager further demonstrated that they don't necessarily or confidently agree with that figure. We submitted evidence of the request of the Groundwater Authority to use Meadowbrook's wells specifically to, and I'll quote, provide a better representation of the groundwater aquifer in the northwest area of Indian Wells Valley from which to estimate sustainable yield and water supply in the basin, and to improve the groundwater model for calculating sustainable yield and groundwater storage calculations in the Northwest Basin, and to refine estimated subflow from Rose Valley into the basin, end quote. Even today, the pump fee includes line items specifically to review the Navy model and the basin technical characteristics because current GSP assumptions lack supporting evidence and are not supported by best available science and information. We assume that's why those studies are identified to be performed. A few final points. The report has not cited a single federal appellate case to support its flawed theory that a Federal Reserve water right can be used off the Navy base or transferred to non-Navy users. The report is not consistent with reserved water right case law that limits such a right to the primary purpose of the federal entity at the time of the reservation. The report contains no analysis of this issue or secondary Navy water uses that may be regulated under state law. The report also makes conclusory, aggressive, and false statements regarding Meadowbrook's reasonable and beneficial use of water under California law, again improperly targeting agriculture and Meadowbrook in particular. It also singles out other users, including Mojave and Searles, and without addressing other private entities. Instead, the report is pretty clearly designed to shield groundwater authority member agencies and other anointed users from the $2,000 replenishment fee and to eradicate agriculture. And so we, as indicated in our correspondence, and in conclusion, we urge the board to refrain from adopting this report and any GSP implementation action predicated upon it until all the issues are thoroughly addressed and corrected. And we also object to the Groundwater Authority aggressive implementation of this most expensive GSP that is deeply flawed and has not been reviewed by DWR and is likely to be rejected for noncompliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. There's somebody else waiting. Go ahead. Caller, please go ahead.
Yes, this is Renee Westerlusk. I just want to say that I approve of this report, and I think the board should approve it. I agree with the Federal Reserve water rights of the U.S. Navy. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, we got no other further comments. Well, let's bring it back to the board for a comment, and we do have a call. Caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Elizabeth Esposito again on behalf of Mojave Pistachios and Sierra Shadows Ranch. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. So again, wanted to refer the board to our detailed written comments that we submitted on Agenda Item 9 yesterday, and to raise just a couple of highlights echoing Mr. Hoffman's comments. So the first is that we'd urge the board, again, to postpone adoption of the Sustainable Yield Report and determination first until the board has opportunity to substantiate the conclusion that the sustainable yield of the basin is, in fact, 7,650 acre-feet per year. We'd ask that the board consider the more recent and robust data that has come available that wasn't considered in the GSP, and which we believe does not support the conclusion that the basin's sustainable yield is truly limited to that fixed number. The second comment I'd raise is that we don't believe there's factual or legal support for the idea that the Navy is entitled to the entire sustainable yield of the basin. The reason is that the groundwater extraction fee data package explains that the Navy pumps only approximately 1,450 acre-feet per year, and at the June board meeting, we heard Commander Benson explain that the Navy had agreed to their allocation of 2,041 acre-feet per year. And so there's no basis then for granting the Navy the entire sustainable yield of the basin, where it now produces less than 20% of the sustainable yield and admits that an allocation of approximately 27% would suffice. The third comment I'll raise is that this action requires evaluation along with the other GSP implementation actions in an environmental impact report. We raised numerous environmental impacts associated with fouling of agricultural land, which will be a reasonably foreseeable result of the GSP implementation actions collectively. And we've cited several scientific studies and other environmental impact reports that have concluded that fouling of agricultural lands has potentially significant environmental impacts associated with air quality, human health impacts, aesthetics, land use, economics, and multiple other impacts that we believe need to be evaluated before the board can adopt this action. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, I see no other callers, so we're going to see if we can close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comment, consideration, and a vote. Anyone?
I guess the bottom line question is, since all of this has been covered, and it's whether it's in the GSP or not, what is the purpose of this resolution exactly? Why do we need this resolution? It appears it's strictly written from a legal standpoint. There's really no engineering in it. And I understand what we're trying to do here, because I can see from the discussion items on the administrative report here that it's really addressing what we feel the Navy's Federal Reserve rights mean. So my question is, why do we need a resolution to do that? And if we do, there are some things within the body of it that I would like to ask about as well. So can I get a answer for that?
So I guess, are you asking why we're adopting it as a resolution, or why certain things wouldn't be in the resolution?
No, right now I'm asking generally, why do we need to adopt this as a resolution? Because all you're really doing is asking us to accept this body's legal team's conclusions on this subject.
You could adopt this as a minute order if you wanted to. It's usually better and preferable to adopt something like this as a resolution for tracking purposes. That's why there's a resolution, specifically that, and it calls out the CEQA determinations in the resolution. That's the underlying reason why we adopt this resolution. Why do you need to make this report available and adopt it and tell the public why you're doing this? This is because your determinations based on fees and what you move forward with here are based on this. Essentially what this is saying is that this GSA has to act like a water storage district has for the last 50 years, which is they've had the requirement to take care of overdraft within their boundaries, but unable to tell somebody what their water right is or to tell somebody to stop pumping. And with that being the case, what they had to do then was charge for water. So that's part of the underlying issue. Now let's kind of go through what it's saying here. You know, we heard comments that this is targeting. There's no targeting in this. We've had two entities that have made statements related to the legal analysis in here, and we respond to those. That's it. Frankly, we didn't have to respond to them, but I think it makes the analysis much clearer for everybody. This could have been a one-page document that said sovereign immunity prevents us from regulating the Navy. The Navy's told us that A, the Federal Reserve right is not limited to the current on-base demand of 2,041 acre-foot. B, Federal Reserve right dates back to the establishment of the base in 43. C, Federal Reserve right would likely be established if ever through litigation. That's the Navy saying you want to know, sue us. 4, the water requirements of the Navy cannot be determined solely by the recent direct production amounts. And 5, since the Navy mission at Nosh China Lake requires its workforce, the full Navy water requirements are a combination of those on-station requirements and those of the Navy workforce off-station. Now, those are the pronouncements we have from somebody that we cannot regulate and whose underlying, how should we put this, the underlying predicate of what those announcements reach are critical for how you determine fees in this basin and how you determine what if any, replenishment fee you need and how much that replenishment fee is. We cannot do anything here. We've done what we can. We've asked the Navy what its Federal Reserve right was, and the Navy's response essentially was, we're not going to tell you this is what we've pronounced our Navy Reserve right is. I know Commander Benson said 2140 last month, but I believe that he means that to be their on-base number. As you can see here, this clearly a pronouncement from the Navy in writing to us says that their water rights include off-base. Now, we've got 3 attorneys on the other side here, Derek Hoffman, Esposito, and Eric Garner, all trying to say that's not legitimate under current law. But they can't also find you a case that says anything different. This is an open question of law. And it's an open question of law that we at this GA board are not able to adjudicate. They need to go adjudicate that in federal court if they don't believe the Navy's right in this assertion. That's the underlying focus of this report. It does not determine water rights. It completely avoids determining water rights. The whole purpose of this report is to tell everybody we cannot determine water rights, and the Navy has given us some very specific pronouncements that others disagree with. We didn't target Searles or Meadowbrook by saying that they have made other arguments. We have simply put forward there are disagreements that need to be adjudicated, but they're not here. They're not for us to adjudicate. The next thing, the question about CEQA and fallowing, whether or not a landowner who came into this basin at a time when stuff like the Todd report was out, which showed this basin was damaged, and did so when the county was attempting and trying to put a moratorium in and put 1,600 acres of trees in, I don't understand the concept that this GSA would have to pay for their fallowing ideas or their needs. This GSA didn't pay for Mike McGee's dust control problems. Neither did the county. Those are their problems that they're going to need to address. So to somehow say that we now have to take care of every single domino that falls, it doesn't follow logically or legally. And frankly, there is nothing here that stops Mojave, who's the one that made this claim, from continuing to pump. They simply have to pay for imported water like everybody else. There's also been conversations and comments about this being some sort of allocation scheme. To the very contrary, there is no allocation in this. That's exactly the whole purpose of this document, is to say we cannot do that. So I think that's all the comments that really need response to at this point.
Thank you.
Who authored this? This was it a legal team effort, or I'm just curious who authored it in particular. And the only thing I guess what is the title of it is a little misleading, because people look at it and say, oh, they're codifying the 7650. And when you read it, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Phil, what this means and what it's about, because I read the recommendations, I read through it. I do have one concern within it that is stated a number of times and doesn't follow through on how we're handling the Prop 218 and water. And that particular one is, and I'll say this, is that I believe it states in here many times, all groundwater extractors in the basin, with the exception of de minimis extractors and federal extractors, will be subject to the cost for overdraft mitigation and augmentation. And I like the fact that it says that, because I believe that everybody's responsible for it. And I'm just saying, keep that in mind when we move down the road into some of these other things like replenishment fee and things like that, because that statement is in here a number of times. And I agree with it, that everybody basically that uses water is responsible somehow or another for helping us get through this situation we put ourselves into. And like I say, the only thing that confused me was the titles compared to what it was doing. I'm sitting there and say, wow, what exactly is this? And then as you read it, and your explanation truly helps. What we're saying is that we as a group are going to go ahead and agree with our legal team's analysis of the required use of the federal claim. So I understand that. And I think you answered my questions. It's just the title could be a little misleading, and that's what threw me off. I'm looking for engineering proof of 7650, and obviously that's not what this is about. And so the title threw me off a little. And of course, I want to make sure that we're cognizant of that statement that everybody is except for the Navy base and de minimis, are subject to the cost for overdraft mitigation and augmentation. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the first question, I'll say it was a team effort in drafting it. Yeah. I probably have a lot of the laboring oar in drafting it, but it was absolutely a team effort. And as for the title, I guess we could have had basin sustainable yield of 7650 to determine beneficial impacts, but at some point the title gets to the point that the title becomes a whole paragraph. So, it was shortened down because I think it kind of got to the point it there. And that's why we have the purpose right up in the front. I think that's all the questions.
Yeah, I'm concerned about your insistence that everybody, you're leading us somewhere in that. I don't know where that's going, but yeah.
And if that's the statement being made here, we need to make sure that we show either follow through with it or have justification for not following through, whatever meaning. But the statement's in there a number of times.
Right.
That's all I'm making the points.
It is, and that would be the case. So one sort of comment we've heard out there, and I think it's been made by a couple, they've sort of asked, well, what happens if the Navy uses more than 2,041 acre-foot? The answer is the carryover shrinks. I mean, that's the answer. A related point, what happens if the sustainable yield's more than 7,650? Well, we didn't determine the Navy's Federal Reserve right either. We just determined that it's at least 7,650. Right. Or I shouldn't even say it's Federal Reserve right. We've determined that there are strong arguments that it's at least 7,650. Yeah, we would have a completely different situation, and we would have a different report in front of you if you had a basin sustainable yield of 30,000 and the Navy's largest historical use ever was less than 10. But that's not what we have. We have a situation where the Navy's historical use is well above 7,650.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I'll be looking for a vote.
Looking for a vote or a motion?
A motion would be good before we have a vote.
Okay. I move staff's recommended board actions, which are make a finding that this action is exempt from further CEQA review because the action is ministerial, does not include a discretionary act, and is mandated by law, and is provided statutorily and categorical exemptions, and will not have a significant effect on the environment. And part 2 of the recommendation is adopt report on the Indian Wells Valley groundwater basin sustainable yield of 7,650 acre-feet per year via resolution number 06-20.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Let's have a roll call vote.
Director Vallejo?
Aye.
Director Kaczynski?
Aye.
Chairman Gleason?
Aye.
Director Page?
Aye.
Vice Chair Human?
Aye.
Thank you. We've gone a little longer than I anticipated. We have lunch. I know this may be an inconvenience to our 2 board members and anyone else calling in who's on the line, Jim and both Jims and Keith. Any objection out there to us taking a break for 10 minutes or 15 minutes for lunch?
Can we just get a specific time to call back? Because I'll take a break as well.
Yeah, well, let's do that. And let's, what do you need, John? Is 15 minutes good for you? Or do you need
20.
more? 20 minutes. How about 20 minutes? How about 1:15?
1:15 it is.
Okay, so let's take a short recess and reconvene at 1:15 so we can eat lunch and manage our affairs. Thank you. We're secured on a temporary basis till 1:15. Thanks. Lauren, you and Gary are both invited for lunch. We'd love to have you. Good job, everybody. Good job. July 16th, reconvene for the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority Board of Directors meeting. We're up to agenda 9. Let's have a roll call before we start, please.
Director Vallejo?
Present.
That's good.
Director Kaczynski?
Present.
Chairman Gleason?
Yep.
Director Page?
Present.
Vice Chair Heyman?
Present.
Could we turn up the volume on those call-ins? We can barely hear both Director Page and Director Vallejo. Okay, thanks. You got a thumbs up, so we're good to go. Okay, we're about ready to start up on item number 10, board consideration and setting for... Okay, that was a little too much. That's okay. Board consideration, item number 10, board consideration and setting for public hearing for Frank Bellino and failure to register, report, and pay groundwater extraction fees. Don, take us off.
Excuse me. The board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority adopted ordinance 0218, establishing groundwater extraction fees and the rules and regulations and procedures for their implementation on July 19, 2018. The ordinance pertains to all non-de minimis extractors within the basin as defined in California Water Code Section 10721C. Section 4 of the ordinance states, quote, no later than August 20th, 2018, a groundwater extraction facility within the boundaries of the basin shall be registered with the authority by the groundwater extractor, unquote. Section 6 further states, quote, before the 10th day of each calendar month, the groundwater extractor shall self-report the necessary data from its groundwater extraction facility on the self-reporting form provided by the authority and pay the groundwater extraction fee set forth in Section 3 above, unquote. Mr. Bellino has been confirmed both by other local agriculture operations and aerial photographs to be a non-de minimis agriculture extractor. County assessor's data also confirms the property is being used to grow pistachios. Mr. Bellino has failed to register his well or wells and has failed to comply with payment of the groundwater extraction fee since the fee became effective in September of 2018. Mr. Bellino was mailed notices advising him of his failure to comply on 3 separate occasions, July of 2018, November of 2018, and January of 2019. The letters have stated, quote, please be advised that your continued failure to register your groundwater production well or wells using the enclosed registration form and payment of the groundwater extraction fee will subject you to legal action by the authority, including a court order to prevent you from extracting groundwater from the basin and requiring payment of the groundwater extraction fee with penalties as a result of your noncompliance, unquote. He's failed to respond to every outreach effort. Staff recommends that your board set a date of August 20th for a public hearing.
Are you done?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's open up a public comment. Anybody out in the public wishing to make comment? Now's the time. Okay, it looks like we have a caller. Public hearing is now open on item number 10. We have a caller. Please identify yourself and go ahead and speak.
Yes. My name is Mike Neal.
Hi, Mike.
Yes. Okay. First, I want to start off comments by saying 3 cheers for Mr. Bellino. He gets to be the first person who the groundwater supposed authority is bringing the hammer down on. Now, obviously, by his lack of response, he's given you what they call an aggressive, passive-aggressive, that's what the term is. A passive-aggressive resistance, and he's basically holding his fist up in your face along with possible other appendages attached to that, and saying, forget you, I've been here for a long time, I've been drawing water, you can't just show up and tell me what I have to do and what I have to pay. Now, of course, pay attention, Mr. Kaczynski. Here's the increase in the pumping fee coming your way, more legal fees, and the only people who are going to benefit from this are the lawyers who are going to get rich, going to court, taking poor, unfortunate citizens to court to bring this legal hammer down on their head. The other sad thing about this, if you read between the lines and think for 1/2 of a second, it says he's been confirmed by other local agricultural operations to be a non-reporting pumper. So basically, he's been ratted on by his friends and neighbors. Isn't that sad that people would rat on their friends and neighbors on behalf of an unelected bureaucracy who just showed up and assumed power to themselves? I hope that people in this valley will bring aid and comfort to Mr. Bellino and enable him to continue his fight against you people in court and in any other means.
Thanks, Mike. Next up. I see a red light up there, meaning there's no call-ins. We're done with the call-ins. Thank you very much. So let's close the public hearing and bring it back for board for comment, consideration, and a vote. Gentlemen, anyone?
My only comment is we need to be fair across the board. You know, people are pushing us here that we treat everybody fairly and equitably when it comes to fees, regulations, and registrations. So that's all I have to say, and that's what we're doing.
I got a question. Do you mind? I got a question. From Mr. Bellino's behavior to date, he's not been non-participatory in any event. I don't expect him to show up for the hearing. I don't expect him to do anything. What are the consequences, and how does this thing play out if Mr. Bellino does not participate in the process?
Well, as you move forward, one of the options, and I think at that point the only option would be to order him to cease pumping in the basin. And then you would follow that up with a lawsuit, because you have to take him into civil court. It would be the equivalent is the county nuisance process, which you're probably familiar with, you know, with declarative nuisance. They don't show up. Well, all right, now it's a nuisance, and take them into court and have a court order them to stop.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. I also echo Mr. Kaczynski's concerns about fairness. This is not targeting Mr. Bellino, other than the fact that he is in noncompliance, and anybody who's in noncompliance is going to be targeted by this board. In that sense, we are being fair, and I aim to keep it that way. No other comments? Then we need a motion in a second.
I will move staff recommendation to set a hearing date for August 20th.
We have a motion. We have a second out there.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Kaczynski,
Aye.
Chairman Gleason,
Aye.
Director Page,
Aye.
Vice Chair Heyman.
Aye. Item number 11, board consideration of setting a public hearing for Pearsonville Park for failure to report and pay groundwater extraction fees. Don.
Yes, this is the same issue regarding ordinance 0218, so I won't go through that again. Ms. Pearson did register a well in Inyo County, which is used for commercial enterprise, Pearsonville Shell and Pearsonville Park. The registration form mistakenly claimed de minimis status. Although she has been mailed monthly reporting forms, she's failed to submit the forms and pay the groundwater extraction fee since the fee was effective September 2018. Ms. Pearson has also received letters notifying her of the requirement to pay the groundwater extraction fee. When contacted by phone, she requested proof of the requirement to pay the fee. Staff provided a copy of Ordinance 0218 with another monthly reporting form March 24th of 2020. Staff has since spoken to David Pearson, who provided contact information for Philip Berry, the so-called well manager. Staff attempted to contact Mr. Berry on May 13th, 2020, leaving a voicemail. There's been no response since that time. So as with Mr. Bellino, staff is recommending that your board set a date of August 20th for a public hearing on this issue.
Thank you. Let's open the public hearing. Anyone with thoughts from the public about this issue? Now it's time to call in. Okay, I see nobody calling in, so we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for a motion and issue discussion.
I move staff's recommendation that the board set a hearing date for August 20th for this Pearson Park.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Before we get a second, I want to reopen the public hearing. I got a light up there telling me somebody's called in. Could you please, caller, please make a comment. Now's your time. Caller, you're up.
Before we get a second. Yes, that's Mike Neal again.
Mr. Neal.
Yes. I say again, like I did for Mr. Bellino, three cheers for the Pearsons, who are also holding their fist up in your face because they understand this. They shouldn't be having to do this. I also have a suggestion to the board. Instead of these letters and phone calls, well, I'll just invite a couple of you to go out there and talk to these people face to face and get a good feel about how they feel about what you're trying to do to them. and how they feel about this thing. Or better yet, send your attorney, Mr. Hall, and if he goes out there and gives them his arrogant attitude like he has several of us over the last few months, maybe it'll incense them to the point that they'll swear eternal defiance against you. This is ridiculous, and I'll remind you of a principle of American law. An unconstitutional law is no law at all. And you people are unconstitutional in your very formation, and therefore your laws are unconstitutional and illegal. People shouldn't be having to put up with this. But guess who's going to get to pay? More increase to the pumping fee, Mr. Kaczynski, more legal fees, and you know how those mount up.
Thanks, Mike. Next caller. Caller, you're up.
Hi, this is Renee Westerlusk again.
Hi, Renee.
I have a question. As far as like she's considered a commercial user, correct? And so does that, even if she uses below 2 acre-feet a year, she still has to do the fee?
Thank you, Renee.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Can we have an answer to that question, please?
The answer is yes, Renee. De minimis is 2 acre-foot for domestic purposes.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification.
Any other callers? I'm seeing none. We have a motion on the table from Mr. Page to support staff's recommendation. I'm looking for a second and a vote.
Second.
And a second. Roll call vote, please.
Director Vallejo?
Aye.
Director Kaczynski?
Aye.
Chairman Gleason?
Aye.
Director Page?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hayman?
Aye.
Item number 12, Water Resource Management Report. Oh, quiet, Steve Johnson. Steve, you there?
Hey.
You're
Thank you,
up.
Chairman Gleason. This is Steve Johnson here. All well and good. I think some of you heard I had a little health issue, but I am all good. Doing a little bit of follow up with the doctor, but I think I'm better than 100%. So things are good going forward. Anyway, it's good to hear. It's good to see some of you on the screen, which I've got here watching, and it's good to hear from the rest of you, from the community, and from the board members and staff. All good. So we'll get right to business. If Gary can put up the PowerPoints, I've only got 4. It's just update stuff. You guys have accomplished a lot today. I'm going to do this quickly because it's already been a long meeting. And I'm going to start the first one. There it is. First one is update on Prop 1 status and schedule. The first 3 items there are invoice 3, 4, and 5. We've reported on those before. They're completed, confirmed by DWR, and paid, and we're done with those. Those are good. Keep track of those. Invoice number 6. We had a little bit of a I won't call it a hiccup, but a little coordination issue because it was actually submitted right before our girl Heather went out for maternity leave, got into DWR. We got some comments back, so we had to scramble a little bit to respond to the comments. Comments are in. We did submit. We responded to their comments back in May. I'm sorry. We submitted their comments on July 8th. They submitted the comments in May. We got them back on July 8th, so all the comments are in. We're waiting for DWR to respond back on invoice number 6. I do not have this on the PowerPoint, but we are working on invoice number 7 right now. We're about halfway through it, but we're moving forward on invoice number 7 while they review invoice number 6. And at the very bottom there, it just talks about the grant agreement revisions, which incorporated Prop 68 into the Prop 1 agreement and extended the agreement. So that's the first PowerPoint. That's an update to let the people know where we are. We continue to coordinate with DWR. The next PowerPoint is on Prop 68. Again, I'll go forward because some of this is repetitive. The amounts are shown there. Grant was fully executed. The agreement on May 4th, that was a part of the Prop 1 agreement. We are working on the first invoice. Our first job on that was, because we applied for it, was reimbursement for more of the past cost. And we have now pulled all of the past costs together. That's the update. All the past costs that are going in this first invoice have pulled together, and we're now working through current costs that will be applied. Our goal would be to apply those current costs that are applicable to Prop 68 grant funding through July, so it's through this month. We expect to have that invoice and progress report as part of as the Prop 6 invoice and progress report to DWR. We expect to have that to them by, I would expect, early to the middle August. The last PowerPoint item we have on this one is at the bottom. The first invoice is due by September 4th in accordance with the agreement. That's 4 months after execution. We fully intend to make sure we get it in time for DWR to address our first invoice under the Prop 68 agreement. That is underway. The next PowerPoint has to do with groundwater pumping verification work we're doing. I've reported before that we did get 32 responses to our questionnaire on pumping verification. We had 55 registered non-diminis. We got 32 responses. As you all noted today, some work is being done to follow up on some of those that were non-responsive. But we did get 32 responses. We prepared staff reports on those and resubmitted those to all the pumpers. We did receive 7 responses back with either questions or providing additional information for us to evaluate. All of those have been addressed and are ready to return back to the individual pumpers. Those 7, except for one, and specifically, and one of the pumpers. These are public anyway, so I don't see there's any problem mentioning it. We actually got 3 different responses. Well, not 3 separate. Some of it was overlap, some of it was repetitious. We received 3 separate responses from Sierra Shadows. So it's been a little bit of a chore for us to kind of get through all those, make sure we're responding to everything. They did respond initially, and then they responded again, and then we got another response as part of a legal filing through legal counsel along with Mojave. So we do have information. They've come back, and we want to make sure we've got it all. So it's taking a bit longer to evaluate the Sierra Shadows pumping verification information they provided, so we can finalize that report. It's effectively going to be done this week. We will have all of the responses to comments we received, which is for the 7 that submitted additional information. We will have, they're essentially done now, but we'll either get them out tomorrow or they will be out no later than Monday. And these are scheduled for the board to address at the August meeting. We are moving forward there. Things are good. We should complete that. I think this is the last one, the last PowerPoint, and I want to emphasize on this last PowerPoint, this is a draft, and some of these comments were actually, if we go to the next PowerPoint, Gary, some of these that are in this draft schedule, some of this information was addressed earlier. Some comments were provided, and I think Phil Hall, legal counsel, I think he responded very well to them in regards to scheduling and timing and dates. But I want to emphasize this is a draft. Things are moving. We're getting comments in. Decisions are made. Things are being deferred. This is a draft of what we know right now. I put this together last week, and I don't think it's changed for what we know right now, but I just want to emphasize this is not a firm schedule. The firm schedule is done by the board at the board meetings. So the first item there is for the authority's June board meeting. It just shows some of the things that we actually did back then. It shows done on the right. Going forward today, a lot of work was done on the pump fee adjustment by the board. We got through that. Sustainability yield report, we got through that. And I provided an update on the pumping verification, which I just did. Those are kind of the key items that we were going to accomplish today. I know a lot more was done, but these are some key dates that we're directly involved with. Excuse me. For the August board meeting, these are the items we're looking at. It's consideration of the 218 report, new replenishment fee, the replenishment fee public hearing adoption on its effective date, the transient pool and fallowing program adopted consideration. These are all going to August. The pumping verification report, which I just reported on, and reported that it is scheduled for August at this time. That's on the schedule. And then consideration for the policy on new groundwater extraction wells. That's being looked at for the August meeting. So that gives you an idea of what's coming up. I did make an adjustment on the next item, which is the Ag Fallow Program final decision date. You may recall that was August. I arbitrarily have not run this through legal counsel, through Phil or staff or anybody else. I moved it back a month. This used to say August. I moved it back 1 month. Again, this is a draft. This didn't make sense to make this August when we're moving some other things back to the August board meetings. I moved it back 1 month to September 1st. On the last item, the last schedule item has to do with some things coming up. GSP pump adjustment reporting period begins. This is the new pump fee, September 1st. This is what you've seen before. I haven't changed anything there, and again, it's a draft. Replenish be effective September 20th. No changes there, at least for this draft. And then full month GSP pump fee adjustment and partial replenishment fee. These key dates for that would be October 1st. So those are the dates we have right now. We try to keep this stuff updated and keep everybody tracking as best we can. As we've done before, I try to go through all the PowerPoints and then be available to answer any questions, the public comments or questions, and then certainly the board. That's what I have, Chairman Gleason. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. It's nice to have you alive and kicking. Thank you very much.
Yes, me too.
Let's open up for public comment. Anybody in the public wishing to make comment on the Water Resource Manager report? Now's your opportunity. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. Nope, I'm getting a head shake. No, doesn't look like anybody's there. So let's close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Do we need a vote on this, or we just... There's nothing to vote on, okay. But we do have a caller, so let's go to that caller, and let's take the call. Caller, you're up.
Yeah, this is Renee Westerlusk again. I just want to get a clarification on the August board meetings draft schedule about the replenishment fee public hearing adoption, and it says effective September 20th. You're expecting the effective date, the date that replenishment fee would go into effect, to be in September?
Good.
Thank you, Renee. That's a good question, and it actually points out something that we missed. He had August 20th, the board meeting for the replenishment fee hearing. The fee hearing we actually moved to the next day, right, so that people could have more time for comment.
That's correct.
I'm not sure if the board wants to also offer people comment the day before, so they could pick and choose which one they wanted to show up at, but that would be your choice. And yes, right now the concept is it would go into effect 30 days after adoption. That's when an ordinance can go into effect at the earliest.
Okay.
But the board doesn't have to do it then. They just can't do it any earlier than that day, which would actually be September 21st, if I count right.
August is 31 days.
Skip the first, count the last, whatever that is.
20th. September
Okay,
20th.
It'd still be September 20th if they pass it on August 21st.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Renee, and thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other callers, so thank you very much. Any comments for the board members about item number 12? Let's move to item number 13, General Manager Report.
Okay, item 13A, the monthly financial report. That's in your packet. We do have a balance currently in the account of $148,665. So we will be paying the invoices that we can out of that amount. I do call your attention, if you have the report in front of you, or if you look at it, there are two invoices that have asterisks by them. The Capital Core invoice, as well as the invoice for, it says LA Times Direct, that was the Prop 218 mailing. That one was already paid in advance by the district. And the Capital Core one will be paid directly by district as well, not coming out of this account. So, any questions on the financial report?
Keep going.
Okay. Item B, report on.
Hold on a second. We got a question from somebody somewhere.
This is John Vallejo. Is it okay to speak?
Yes, sir. Please.
Okay. I'm just wondering what's going on with the water district paying Capital Core directly?
Those invoices cannot come out of the pumping fee, so they're coming out of a future fee, potentially the replenishment fee if that goes through.
That answers my question. Thanks.
Seeing nothing else, okay, item 13 B, report on the water marketer Capital Core Group. The update memorandum is included in your board packet, but I'll just briefly summarize. Capital Corps followed up on discussions with the Navy during May with briefings in early June with members of the Southwest Command and with China Lake on an imported water project. Parties have agreed to continue the lines of communication. There are several potential funding sources within legislation on the federal level being monitored. These include the Water Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, the 2020 America's Water Infrastructure Act, the 2020 Drinking Water Infrastructure Act, and the Water for Tomorrow Act. State funding for water projects is being impacted by the projected $54 billion deficit that's now being attributed to the coronavirus pandemic. There does remain funding from Prop 68 to assist with the cost of implementing SGMA. GA staff is currently reviewing our eligibility for those funds. Capital Corps will continue to monitor all water-specific legislation and engage with the appropriate parties to advocate for the needs of the Groundwater Authority. Questions on that?
Any questions from the board members out there? John or Bob? I don't see any, so continue.
Item 13C, Severely Disadvantaged Communities Program Update. Agreements were fully executed July 6th with WaterWise for the Water Conservation Rebate Program and with the California Rural Water Association for the Water Audit, Leak Detection, and Repair Program. Conference calls were conducted with both partners on the following day. The WaterWise program budget is not to exceed $150,000. Development of a website for the program is expected within 2 weeks. They're considering a marketing plan to include direct mailing, newspaper advertisements, and flyers. Cyril's Domestic Water Company has already provided a list of their customers and addresses. Inyo Kern Community Services provided theirs this morning. I just got the email this morning. WaterWise is targeting this program to launch August 3rd. Devices that are included in the rebate program include toilets, urinals, washing machines, dishwashers, evaporative coolers, and hot water recirculating pumps. We're discussing the program specifics, including maximum rebate for commercial users and maximum number of water-saving devices for residential customers. They plan to start accepting applications, until March of 2021 in order to process the final rebates in April of 2021. The budget for the Water Audit, Leak Detection, and Repair Program is $394,000. DWR, SDAT, Severe Disadvantaged Community Criteria, and Disadvantaged Community Criteria mapping tools will be used to identify the severely disadvantaged communities and water systems. The Rural Water Association will work with Stetson to develop work plans for the audit and leak detection components of the program. Leak surveys will be conducted on the distribution network only, not on the customer side, if you will. Repairs will be made by a subcontractor to the Rural Water Association, and they'll be issuing monthly program status updates within the first 10 days of the month so that they can be shared with the board at these meetings. They'll also issue quarterly progress reports with the initial report due August 30th. Moving on. Okay, General Manager's recruitment. The brochure has been updated. I have a copy of it here. It has been posted on the Groundwater Authority's website. I made some inquiries as to different resources to advertise in. There were actually 4 that I contacted. Brown and Caldwell has a water jobs website. I tried to register as a recruiter, but I got a virus protection warning of a phishing threat. So we have the water districts used this one before, so I know it's valid. We're going to follow up and try and resolve that issue. I'm not sure why that happened. I contacted the California Special Districts Association. They have a cost of $105 to post it for 30 days, and that cost also allows access to their resume database. There's a email I get on a weekly or every 2 weeks from something called Water District Jobs. That's based in California. It's $145 for 5 weeks, and that also gives access to their resume database. ACWA, Association of California Water Agencies, which would probably be one of the better ones. Their basic fee for a 60-day posting for a member on the web is $475. They offer for an additional $150 advertisements in their e-news and on social media. Now, I haven't spent any money yet, but I'm just giving you an idea what's out there. I talked to Alan Christensen, and apparently when this recruitment effort was undertaken a while back, there were some free sites he mentioned. He couldn't recall what they were, but we'll follow up and see if we can find something for free. But if not, I think Aqua would be a good one certainly to go with, but we'll follow up on that. We did make a slight adjustment because of the time it took to put all this together. The brochure requests that applicants provide their qualifications by August 31st. So again, that is on our website, and we any resumes or statements of qualifications would go to April, clerk of the board. Item 13E, delinquent accounts. We're currently receiving the monthly report forms for the month of June, and once we get all those and review them, update the records, we'll start the follow-up. And item F, well registration, no change since last month. Since the ordinance was passed, we have 106 new well registrations, all but 6 claiming de minimis status. So once again, the total of wells registered include 122 de minimis and 116 non-de minimis, and the non-de minimis are among 56 pumpers. That's it.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. Any public comment about the general manager's report? I don't see any. Gary, do you agree? There's nothing there? Nothing there. Okay, so let's move on to, I believe we're at the tail end of this thing. So let's go to closing comments. Let's go to the phone. Mr. Page, do you have any closing comments?
No, I do not have any closing comments.
Mr. Vallejo?
I'm really happy to hear Steve's on the mend. I'm glad that everything worked out for you there, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vallejo. Commander Benson?
Yes, Mr. Gleason, thank you. I'd just like to reiterate some of my comments from the previous meeting in June, that the Navy continues to be a committed partner to help the GA and the community on strategies to bring the basin into sustainable yield, and will lean in as far as we can within the unique and specific federal legal limitations. As we understand the purpose of SGMA, it is not to make decisions on water rights in the basin, but rather allocations to bring the basin into sustainable yield. In response to the GA and to further their SGMA goals, the Navy submitted a report to outline historic pumping, changes in pumping, current pumping, anticipated base growth, and demographics of off-base personnel in support of the mission, in good faith to aid the GSP development. As part of that report, the Navy agreed to an allocation of 2,041 acre-feet to the GSP process to support on-base activity to include anticipated growth. The Navy did not provide a Federal Reserve water right number, as that will be decided through an adjudication after extensive discovery and cross-examination. The IWV GA alone made the decision to use the Navy's pumping data to estimate the Federal Reserve water right. Additionally, the IWV GA made the allocation decisions to transfer the IWV GA estimated Federal Reserve water right. The Navy didn't direct or ask or imply that the IWV GA should transfer the estimated Federal Reserve water right balance. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Commander, Kaczynski, Ron.
I thought you promoted me there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The only comment I want to make is I've received some interesting comments because once the 218 thing went out, I'm encouraging people to come and listen to what's going on. But one comment was the cost of water will cause everybody to leave the valley. But most of the comments say, but no water will definitely cause them to leave the valley and they have no option to stay. So I think that shows you where the thought package is out there. There's people who say, well, we shouldn't pay for anything. There's really nothing to do, and we'll just ride the storm out. And then there's those people who believe that, yes, we need to solve the problem because if we have no water here, you can say goodbye. And I just want to make that comment. I think that was a very good comment that I've seen, and it shows both sides of the story. And the last thing I do is I want to encourage the public and the hearings that are coming up, please come to them. Study what there is out there. Talk to people who have the numbers and the figures to help you, and come to a good decision about what you plan to do. And finally, I want to welcome back, Steve. I'm glad you're healthy, and I'm sure glad your wife took care of you.
Yes, she did. Thank you, Ron. Thank you very much.
Mr. Heyman.
I just want to add to Steve, really good to hear from you, and glad you're doing good.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, I have something.
I can't wait to get up on have an open meeting.
Yeah. I've got something to talk about. At the very beginning of this year, when I took over this chairmanship, I laid out an annual strategy that I believed that we needed to hit. And there were milestones in order to get to from here to the end zone. And so far, most of them have been legal. And we've done an outstanding job of hitting those milestones and getting things moving. And we are where we are in large part because of the dedication of the staff and everybody involved in the process. So I want to thank them for that. It's been brought to my attention that recently that I was not complete in my design and the building of the strategy and tasks that we needed to do. And it was brought to my attention by Capital Corps, which sent out a memo saying that, they just awarded, I forget what it was called, a lot of money for shovel-ready projects that needed to go, and we were not capable of receiving any of those dollars because we did not have it wasn't shovel-ready, but it was another projects that were ready to go, in the can, ready to go. One of the things that Capital Corps said is that you've got to decide if you want to go from the north or from the south in importing water. So I sent that out to everybody. I said I thought that was a critical issue in order for us to drive our costs to where we want them to be. There are more things we have to do this year than what I had anticipated, and one of those is getting into an earnest conversation about whether we want to import from the north or the south, because there's money out there that's available to us, and we only get those if we have projects. And I don't know what the answer to this is, what I'm saying, but I think we have to begin that process earlier rather than later. And in order to do that, I don't think we can move the ball very far without the Navy support. So I appreciate Commander Benson's comments about the Navy leaning in when we need to. And I just want to reiterate publicly that this community is bending over backwards to support the Navy and to support ourselves and take ownership of our issues. And we've gone way beyond, I think, where we've ever been in many respects in terms of recognizing a problem, shifting our cultural understanding of the quality of life we have and our, the world we live in, and we are, people are paying, whether they can afford it or not, the GSP replenishment fee, and then we're going to talk about our GSP preparation fee. Now we're going to talk about replenishment fee. So this community is moving out, and the farmers are involved, the city's involved, everybody's involved and help come to a solution of where we're going. The costs associated with imported water is what I want to hit for a minute. The replenishment fee, by Mick Gleason's future, looking into my ball, is one of the first things we have to pay to do with the replenishment fee is to buy water. That's my thought. I don't know if you people agree with me. I don't know where we're going to go with that. But I think we need to buy water, and we're talking a lot of money, and to buy water rights and stepping into a world that we're not familiar with, we don't have any experience in, and it's expensive, and it's going to take a lot of work to get us there, and that was on my agenda for this year. But what was not on my agenda this year is understanding that we've got to work now on those infrastructure costs that are associated with once we get the water, what are we going to do with it? We've got to begin those conversations now. And I don't think, from listening to Inyo County, their legitimate concerns, the legitimate concerns of the people in Kern County and the water, just everywhere else, that we've got to come to a resolution, and the costs are going to be prohibitive. If you put that in together with the rebuild going on the base, now is a time for us to act with the money coming in and the attention and the focus of the people in D.C., in the Pentagon, at China Lake, because it doesn't do a hell of a bit of goods to invest all that money if we still have a water problem. So I'm going to be leaning into the Navy, saying, okay, we're doing our share. You've done phenomenal up to this point, and we hope that you will continue. But we, as a community, I don't believe can do all that we need to do without some serious support from the Navy, from the grant application process, and all the other opportunities that we have to apply for to get to the end zone. So I guess I'm saying I miscalculated my strategy this year at the beginning of this year, and I'm going to adjust it, and we're going to be talking more about it. And these issues are upon us now. And we need to leverage the Navy, we need to leverage INYO, we need to leverage LADWP, and I saw everybody to understand the costs, understand the direction where this water is going to come from, and understand what we want to do and how we can do it and how we can build win-wins for everybody. So a long-winded speech. I really didn't. It's a long day, and you guys have been awesome, but expect more. It's not going to stop. It's the pace is going to quicken for the rest of this year and going into next year. And with that cheery bit of news, I think I'll end my comments and thank everybody and welcome Steve back to the world of the living. I think that also closing comments are completed. The date and time of the next meeting is August 20th, 2020. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick.